Welcome, everyone, to episode number 8 of our podcast, Motivate to Move. I am John Lagroff.
And I'm Diane Treit.
Today, we have a lady that has done a little bit of everything. And I mean, she covers everything under the sun, from rock climbing to kickboxing back in the day, to some boxing, to running, to trail running, to ultras. Vanessa Richardson, thank you for coming on our podcast here today.
Hey.
It's good to have you.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Vanessa, would you mind telling our listeners a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what it is that you do for fun? Because it sounds like you do a lot of stuff.
I know. Yeah, Diane is my aunt.
Yay.
I'm 34 years old, and I live in Pine Grove, Nova Scotia, which is sort of the rural outskirts, so it's kind of between Truro and Elmsdale. I work as a nurse for VON, which is like a home care service. My husband and I, we live on a small farm. We have around 200 chickens right now.
200 chickens? Wow.
Yeah, I did a rough count last night because I thought you guys would ask.
I wouldn't call that a small farm.
How long does it take to count 200 chickens? I mean, how do you keep them in one corner so that, hey, you stay over there, you stay there, you stay there? Like, I already counted you. No, I didn't count you. Like,
yeah, at nighttime, where like I go and shut the door out in the barn in the chicken coop there, and they all line up on these roosts, all in a line. It almost looks like a big, huge ladder, and they just all line up and sleep there. So they're all staying still, and they're very easy to count.
So you live on a farm, and I know you have pets. Tell us about your pets.
Well, I have 2 dogs and 2 cats. And I also have a little potbelly pig. She's an indoor pig.
Is there any such thing as a little potbelly pig? Does that even exist?
That's a good question.
I think she's little, but most people, when they see her, they're pretty surprised. She's around 100 pounds.
Oof. Well,
Yeah.
She's not that big, is she? Is she? Okay. I've never owned a potbelly pig, so I don't know. What's her name?
Her name's Peggy.
Peggy the potbelly pig. So alliteration at its finest right there.
So do they all get along? All your dogs and cats and pig and chickens, do they all get along?
They do.
How many acres do you have there?
We have around 14 and a half acres, I think.
Wow. Yeah, That's quite a bit.
That's a lot of acreage for you to be active. I know you do a lot of outdoor activities, and I think we interrupted you when you were talking about your life, and we just were amazed at your farm, so we got off topic a bit. So tell us a little bit more about what you do to stay active and moving. Have you always been active?
Not like I have been in the last couple of years. I've really taken an interest in the last 2-3 years being very active.
So what changed? What made you become more active?
So 4 years ago, 2016, that was a really hard year. My dad was killed at a workplace accident, and a few months later, my grandmother died from cancer.
Oh, that was a tough year.
Yeah, that was a really tough year. It honestly didn't really affect me until the end of 2016. Going into 2017, It just kind of hit me. I would say the end of 2016, I was diagnosed with PTSD. That was related to my father's death. Yeah, I won't really get into the details as to how I developed PTSD, but I'll just say it was the lowest point in my life. I ended up taking some time off work for a few months and went against doctor's advice by not going on medication. And that was just purely a personal choice. I'm not against medication, but I wanted to try and get through it by alternative therapies. So 2017, I spent basically doing all sorts of different things to help cope and learn, and I spent a lot of that year healing. 2018 is when I went on a crazy waterfall excursion, and that changed my life. And from that moment on, I think is when I really became quite active.
Okay. So you went through a tough time, and thank you for sharing, because I know sometimes it's difficult to share hard things, and I appreciate that you're sharing that with us. And I do appreciate that you tried to, find help for yourself without medication. And so you found that the answer for you is to be active and to do physical things. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what worked for me. And to be honest, I found it really hard at first. Like being active, I had panic attacks, like trying to go for a walk and just thinking about all the awful things that have happened. But I guess what really helped me was baby steps. So taking care of the chickens on our farm. So I had to get up every day, get outside, and give the chickens food and water and look after them. And just by getting outside and doing that made me realize, oh, it's nice outside. I want to spend more time outside today. And then that would just build on from there. And every day got a little better. I'd spend more time outside. And I learned to really like being outside. Going for those walks got better over time. Now I absolutely love it.
Now, at that point, did you ever think that you would do all the things that you're doing now? Did you think that you would be climbing, rock climbing, climbing walls, running a marathon? I know that was on your list of things to do this year. At that point, did you even think that you could do any of that stuff?
Not at all. It never even registered that I'd be capable of doing all these things until after that waterfall excursion I went on. It really opened my eyes and made me feel like I was on top of the world and that I can do anything.
Tell us about these waterfalls, the magical waterfalls.
Yes, I don't advise anyone going there. My uncle Kenny, which is your brother, he's quite the adventurer.
He's a really great guy. He loves the outdoors, he loves adventures, and he loves sharing the outdoors with people. And I think that's what he was doing with you that day, wasn't he? You and your husband Tori, and two of your dogs, your two dogs.
We took one of our dogs with us. Yeah. Originally, we planned to go to Trigo, and when Kenny found out about that, he showed up and said, I heard you're going to Trigo. Well, I've got a better place to take you if you're interested. We always go on these adventures with him, and we always are kicking ourselves at the end. Like, why did we go? He always takes us to these extreme places.
So, was it everything you thought it was going to be?
He said we would be climbing some waterfalls and be hiking for the majority of the day, and that we'd be back by supper time. He didn't really tell us a whole lot about it. We brought our dog Jax, and we put him in the truck. So it was Kenny, my husband, and I in the truck with our dog, and he took us to the middle of nowhere. I couldn't even tell you how to get there, but it is in southeastern New Brunswick near Fundy National Park. I think it was called Goose Creek. To get there, there's no cell phone service, so you have to kind of know where you're going. And Kenny has a GPS unit. Kenny doesn't use a cell phone ever. He doesn't own one. So he uses a GPS unit to plug in coordinates and to find places. And that particular day, he did not bring it.
Oh, geez. Figures, huh?
Yeah. Did he? Yeah, no, he did bring it that day. And I remember him telling us he was looking at the sun and looking at the trees and figuring out based on the shadows and stuff where approximately we were in the woods.
Right.
Yeah, so we got there after a while of driving on these roads, and when we got out of the truck, he says to us, I probably wouldn't have brought the dog if I were you. And we were like, what? Like,
It's kind of late at that point.
he's like, yeah, it might be hard for the dog to get through this hike, but he's like, I would have left him home. And I said, that would have been good to know before we left. Anyway.
Yikes.
Yeah.
So how did it go? It was up the creek, right? Up Goose Creek, and there were waterfalls. That sounds beautiful.
It is very beautiful. To get there, you hike through some woods, and I remember it was a very steep decline, and it was very mossy the whole way down. It was quite the trek to get down there. When we got to the bottom, it was like almost like a big gorge. The way that Kenny advised to get back up would be to travel up this creek, this river, and to climb up these waterfalls.
How hard was it?
That was one of the harder things that I've done. It took us 6 hours to get out of there, and I've never seen anyone climb a waterfall before. And Kenny led the way, and he said, yeah, we're going to climb up. I watched him, and he maneuvered around these rocks and pulled himself up and over this cliff, this waterfall. And then I think I went after him. We would have to bring our dog, so my husband would pass the dog to me, and then I would pass the dog up to Kenny at the top of the waterfall. So we were constantly like going up these waterfalls and pulling this dog up over these cliffs.
Oh, poor Jack. So how many waterfalls were there?
I lost count.
Oh, that many.
Yes.
Wow. This sounds crazy. This sounds crazy nuts.
I did this same hike about a month ago.
Yeah. Am I exaggerating to say
No,
20,
you're
30?
not exaggerating at all, because I was told that I would lose count of the waterfalls, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to lose count of the waterfalls. Well, I did, but I have pictures that I took of 20 waterfalls, and I didn't get every one. I missed a couple, so there were at least 20 waterfalls on this. I think it's about a 5-kilometer section of the river. It was stunning. It was spectacular. And so this, you said, was the hardest thing that you have done physically, but obviously you loved it.
I think it was one of the hardest things I've done, because at the time I wasn't as in shape as I am today, and I can remember hanging on to the edge of some of those waterfalls with just my fingertips and on the tips of my toes, and thinking, if something goes wrong, if I can't make the next holds, if I slip, I'm going to fall, and this is going to be bad. And I just kept telling myself, breathe, just breathe, one step at a time.
And you said that changed your life.
By the end of it, I was exhausted, and I was, I think, very overwhelmed with emotion, and I almost felt numb. And it didn't really hit me until later on that day and the next day after, and I was just overwhelmed. Like, the adrenaline, the emotions that I went through that day were something I've never experienced, and it made me realize how I want to be able to do more things like that in my lifetime. From that point on, I said to myself, like, I'm going to try and get more in shape and do more things like this, because I felt great.
And you certainly have gone on to do a lot more things in your lifetime, for sure.
Yeah.
So what other outdoor activities do you do?
I love gardening and doing like carpentry type stuff outdoors. I love building things. I love being creative. And I find even like being outside, doing gardening, the muscles in my legs are very sore. Like you don't really think that it's that hard of a task, but it's just very repetitive. I get so caught up in being outside and not really thinking about how I'm doing it. But by the end of the day, I'm pretty sore.
You were outdoors and walking a lot for your mental health. At what point did you start running? And I know you do some cycling as well. At what point did you progress from walking outdoors to running and cycling?
Well, actually, after that waterfall excursion in 2018, I think I signed up for my first half marathon. That was Maritime Race Weekend, I do believe.
Oh, wow. And that's a tough half marathon too. Not easy at all.
I never even knew that you should check on the websites of these marathons to see the elevation. Oops.
How were the hills?
Yeah, there was a lot of hills. I was relatively new to running. Like I just kind of started a few months prior to train. So I wasn't really into all the gadgets and gear and stuff. I didn't even bring my cell phone because I didn't want to carry the weight. I remember they didn't have distance markers. I think for the first couple of kilometers or were the aid stations. And I kept asking people at the aid stations, how far am I? How far do I got to go? And nobody had an actual distance to give me. So I had no idea.
Holy jumping.
I didn't even know what time it was.
But you finished, and that's what's important. And then you did another half marathon. You did the Hypothermic half marathon twice. How did that go?
Yes, I did that with you, actually. It was awful. And I remember getting in the car with you and looking at you and seeing trying to get the car to warm up, and it said something like minus 18 on the dash of the car. And I said, are we crazy?
But then we did it again in 2020, so.
Yeah. Kind of gets me through the winter. Like, it motivates me to stay active over the holidays and into January. I love the heat. I hate being cold. But I find in the summer when it's really, really hot, it's harder to get those kilometers in, like speed-wise. I don't like pushing myself too hard in the heat.
Vanessa, I mean, that was a great story you told at the beginning there, and I really want to thank you, like Diane said, for sharing that with our listeners. That's quite an ordeal that you went through, and I'm just glad that you made it through okay and that you shared that with us. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. I think it's important for people to kind of see what I went through, and there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's different for everyone.
But I think just by you sharing your story, a lot of people can probably relate to that and just see how strong you have become in spite of everything you've been through.
Well, I want to know, Diane mentioned something about a marathon. Were you going to sign up for a marathon this year, or had you already signed up for a marathon this year?
I did. I signed up for the marathon in Fredericton. Never run a full marathon. Excellent. Yeah, and I also signed up for the Fundy circuit.
And those were both canceled?
And both were canceled.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, did you defer both of those races, or?
Yes, yeah. So we'll see what happens next year.
So, Vanessa, do you and your husband do any of these outdoor activities together? Like, obviously you do the climbing, or you did the waterfalls together, but you didn't know what you were getting into there. Like, do you two run together or rock climb together or anything like that? Or is he just way too busy for any of this?
He's not into like the cardio as much as I am, but he really likes rock climbing. That's his thing, and that's where he excels at. He's very tall. He can reach all these holds. I am very short, and I have short arms, so I struggle quite a bit. But he can do it so well. It started out, I think it was 2019. I bought like a 10-punch pass at our local gym. There's a rock climbing wall there, and I got that for him for Christmas.
Right.
Yeah, so we could go together, something we could do together. And we started going right after Christmas that year, and we got hooked. Both of us, yeah.
Do you train for that specifically? Do you train for rock climbing specifically, or do you just go out and rock climb? Is that all there is to it, or did you have to buy special gear for all this?
Yes. At the gym that we go to, they have all the gear there that you can use, but it's pretty much one size fits all kind of gear. So once we got into a little bit, we went and bought our own gear that fits a little better, more comfortable. And we did a lot of training on this wall. So on the indoor rock wall, there's all these different colored rocks, and they have different routes. So there's like some easy routes, and then there's some more difficult, challenging routes. And you basically have to only touch that one color of rock, and that's considered a route. So they might say, the purple route is the hardest route. So you would try and do the purple if that's what you felt like doing that day. I've never been able to do any of the harder routes. I haven't quite got there. It's a slow process to become one of the better rock climbers there, but it's fun. And on Wednesdays this is before COVID, they had Climb Fit Boot Camp, and it was so much fun. My husband and I went almost every Wednesday, and the group of people that go to this boot camp are all very supportive, and it's very challenging, but we all laugh and have fun, and it's a great workout, but it's more exercises geared towards rock climbing.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a social aspect to it as well. Plus,
yeah.
So you're getting out there socially, and you're having fun with a bunch of people. It's keeping you motivated to keep on going.
Oh, yeah. It's addictive, too, because you see some of these routes that are very hard and some people can accomplish, and then you want to try it. And it's just addictive. If you can't do it, you got to keep going back and trying to get that route, and then you feel accomplished when you get to the top.
And I just know that one day you will accomplish that purple route, won't you?
Yes, I will.
And you've done some outdoor rock climbing? How is that different from indoor?
There's a few different types of outdoor rock climbing. And my husband and I, we're still pretty inexperienced. So we go with people that have more experience and more knowledge, because you've got to be aware of the safety aspect of it. When you're outdoors, it's not as predictable, and you need someone to put a rope up for safety, so you can attach yourself to a rope. So usually somebody with more experience that has the training, they would climb up and clip into these little holds in the rock, and they would put the rope up.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, at the top, and then they would come down on the rope, and then the other people would then attach to the rope, and then they would try this route and go up and down. Yeah.
So when you're climbing, you are attached by a harness then, so you're not going to fall.
Yes. You do fall, but it does catch you. You might drop. I think the furthest I've dropped was maybe 12 feet before the rope caught me.
What?
And I was going to ask you, have you ever been in any scary situations while rock climbing, or does that just not happen? And I think you just answered the question. How did you feel after you fell 12 feet?
My heart was just racing. But that's one thing that I practice in the indoor gym is falling. That is, I think, my weakness. I'm terrified of falling. I know the rope is going to catch me, but you don't know what distance the rope is going to catch you. Like if the person that's belaying you at the bottom, if the rope is a little looser and stretchy, when you drop, it's just seconds. It won't actually catch you for a few feet. And that's where I'm terrified. I don't like the feeling of falling. So I like the rope really, really tight.
Are you scared of heights?
I'm not scared of heights. I just don't like the motion of falling. So I like the rope being really tight on me. So there's not much give if I let go.
So when you fell 12 feet before being caught by the rope, what did that feel like? Did it hurt when you stopped? Like, did the harnesses pull on you? It sounds painful.
It does.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. It wasn't painful because the rope was quite stretchy, so it absorbs a lot of the impact. Yeah.
Wow. You went on a rock climbing trip, an overnight trip, I think. What happened there?
I was so excited for that. That happens every year in New Brunswick, in central New Brunswick. I think Wellsford, maybe. I can't remember. It's called a rendezvous that they do, and it's kind of a get-together of all these rock climbers from the Maritimes, and they gather on this weekend. It's actually this weekend coming that they are doing that. So, but I'm working this weekend, so I won't be going.
Sounds cool.
Yeah. And last year I went. My husband was supposed to come as well, but he works for Nova Scotia Power, and that is when Hurricane Dorian was going through. So he had to be on. Yeah, he had to be on standby. I couldn't come. So I went with my rock climbing friends, and when we looked at the weather forecast when we went, it looked like it was just going to miss us in New Brunswick, and it was going to hit mostly Nova Scotia. So we thought we would be all right, and we set up our tents and everything and tied everything down just in case there were some winds. And I remember that night my husband called and said, "You guys got to get back home." Like there, it could hit you there. And like he was quite concerned because he was on standby with the power company and watching all the weather reports and everything. So we ended up packing up as soon as the sun came up that morning and came back to Nova Scotia.
That's quite a story. Holy cow.
Right, that was a good thing you did because Hurricane Dorian really hit us hard. I think John and I ran the Resurgo Marathon the day after Dorian.
We sure did, and what a nightmare that was. The wind was ridiculous.
Yes, and this was after the hurricane had passed through. This was the day after. Debris that had to be cleared off the trail so we could run. So Dorian really messed with a lot of people's fun last year. So thankful that you were safe and that everyone stayed safe there. So 2020 has been a pretty unusual year for us here. How has that impacted your activities and your movement and the things that you do?
The gym was closed, and I found that hard. I love going to the gym after work or on my days off. It's a social thing as well as I enjoy going there for physical activity. I love the stair climber and I miss it so much.
See, I hate the stair climber. I love to hate it.
Oh, yeah, I think that's my favorite. Yeah, my favorite piece of equipment there.
So you haven't been able to go to the gym, and I know your races have been canceled, so probably you dialed down your training a lot for running.
Yeah. The end of April, I saw an ad on Facebook. Someone had shared a news article about the great virtual race across Tennessee.
Oh,
and
yes.
I clicked that to see what that was about. I ended up signing up that night. I thought, oh, sure. The gym is closed. This will keep me motivated. I can do this. I know I can do this.
Why not? And so this is the Great Virtual Run Across Tennessee. What What was the mileage for that?
So if you pin the points of Tennessee from the start to the finish, like on Google Maps, it's actually 1,021 kilometers-ish. So that was the actual distance.
And how long did it allow you to take to do it?
4 months. You had to finish. Start was May. Yeah, May to August.
May to August, 4 months. So you ran 1,000.
I bet you killed that.
Were you allowed to count walking miles or just running miles?
Yes, walking and running, but only activities like that are above like your daily steps.
Like not taking your dog for a walk.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So if you're walking to the barn, you can't count that.
No.
No, that makes sense. Deliberate activity, deliberate steps. Okay. So, and you finished it. How long did it take you?
I finished, exactly 4 months.
I considered signing up for that one as well, but I didn't because just after that one was introduced, Nova Scotia Trail Running brought out a virtual run across Nova Scotia, and I opted to do that instead. And that was 792 kilometers in 99 days. So I think it worked out to be about the same daily distance. And I finished that with 11 hours to spare.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I think I was around the same. I think I had 6 hours to spare or something.
Okay, really?
That's pretty impressive, though. I mean, you guys are running virtually across provinces and states. And I mean, you're doing it because, like you said, Vanessa, the gym was closed. And, hey, I want to keep myself motivated. So why not sign up and give it a go, right?
I don't know about you, but I would not have put in the mileage.
I find for myself, I need to sign up for challenges in order to be motivated to be active. That's what keeps me motivated. So I see these events and I think, I think I can do that. And I feel so confident. And then when I start training, I doubt myself, but I keep pushing.
Oh, yeah. Never doubt yourself. You're doing fantastic. There's no point in doubting.
Right. And now that this challenge is finished, have you signed up for anything else?
No, I don't have anything signed up. I'm hoping the Hypothermic half will be a go this year, but we'll see.
Oh, yeah. Fingers crossed on that.
Do you train with other people? Do you have a running group that you run with or friends that you run with? Or do you just train by yourself?
I train by myself. I enjoy being by myself. There is a running group. There's a few of them around, but I find it too hard with my schedule to be able to meet up at certain times. Right. Yeah, I like to just be able to go when I feel like it. I'm not a morning person. I don't like morning runs, so I prefer to go later in the evening or afternoon, whenever it works for me, basically.
Do you prefer running on the streets or trails or ultras? What do you prefer? I'd
have to say I prefer the trails. I find it's easier on my joints, my knees, like the impact. When I do trail runs, the distance doesn't seem as long to me as a road run.
And I'm the exact opposite. We're all different, so that's cool.
Yeah.
And I like both. I like to mix it up. Some days I just need the greenery and I need the trees and I just need that for my mental health. And other days I just want to go out and run faster on the pavement. So I like to mix it up. But I do appreciate, I love both.
Now, Vanessa, in your bio, it said that you had lost some weight. You lost, around 40 pounds, I believe you said? Is that correct?
Yeah, I did lose 40 pounds in about a year and a half, 2 years. I can't remember the time frame, but it was in 2018 is when I started that journey with all my increased activity.
About 10 years ago, I was in a somewhat the same situation as you. I just decided I needed to lose weight. I lost 40 or 50 pounds and I kept it off. And I'm just wondering, did you find it easier to lose the weight initially or do you find it easier to keep the weight off now that you've lost it?
I never really thought about that. It was just a very slow weight loss. And my goal, like when I started losing weight, I wanted to do it very slowly because I felt I had a better chance of keeping it off long term if I did more of a slow weight loss.
Exactly the same as me. Do you have any tricks that you do to help you keep the weight off? Do you do anything special?
I absolutely love cardio, intense workouts. That is my thing. When I became more active, I kind of became more conscious of my calorie intake for the first few months. And that, like, I was able to learn how to lose weight based on like a calorie deficit. And I didn't want to give up food. Like I see so many diets that are restrictive and limiting foods, and I love food. I didn't want to have to give up some of my favorite foods, so I just kind of started measuring some things to kind of get an idea of how many calories. I learned more portion control, and when I became more active, I was burning more calories, so I got to eat more food, which is awesome.
Yes.
That's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and throughout this whole process, I discovered, like, I didn't know this before I got into running, but you need calories in order to run, like for fuel, and you need to bring calories with you if you're doing longer distances. And I've found that helps.
Yes.
So much. It's so much easier if you fuel properly.
It does. Your body needs that.
You know, I think I cut you off there a little bit. I think you're going to say you've seen some people.
Oh, yes.
And I'm guessing you're starting to lead down the path of that tried to lose weight and maybe couldn't. And I'm sorry I cut you off, but do you remember your thought there? Could you elaborate on that somewhat or go back to that thought?
I've seen so many people try to lose weight and be unsuccessful. Unsuccessful meaning they've lost a lot of weight at first, but it's very short term. I did not want to fall under that category. Like, I wanted to do a more long-term weight loss that would allow me to live a lifestyle where I don't have to worry about what foods I'm eating if I'm going to go, you know, for a family event or go to a restaurant, not worrying about being focused on the amount of food, like on the types of food, and I just didn't want to have to be as restrictive.
Well, I would say you did a fantastic job. I was in the exact same boat. I didn't want to fail. So it took me 16 months to lose those 50 pounds or whatever. And I think that's the way to do it, is slow. But everybody's taught now, oh, yeah, you can lose all this weight real quick and keep it off. Yeah, right. Bull crap.
And that's why there are so many businesses that are making money, because everybody wants to take it off quickly, and people are going to spend lots of money on all these fads, and slow and steady is the way to go. Do you find that you feel better when you eat good, healthy foods? I know I sure do.
I sure did. Holy cow.
Yeah.
And I'm similar to both of you. I've lost about 40 pounds myself, and it's just through increasing my activity, but also by eating healthy foods. I never counted calories, but I just started eating foods that make my body feel good.
Well, I used to drink about 4 cans of pop a day.
Yeah.
So that's bad.
That is bad.
That's a lot of empty crap calories that are going to get you absolutely nowheres but on the couch and in the hospital somehow. Vanessa, is there anything you wanted to talk about or wanted to go over? Because feel free.
Oh, I was going to ask you about the Fundy Footpath. You even hiked the Fundy Footpath last year, which is not an easy task.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was fun. That was a little harder than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it was something I've read about, I've heard people talk about. I never imagined doing it until you asked me to join you.
And yeah, it was a tough hike, but my gosh, it was fantastic to see these views of the Bay of Fundy that are only accessible by hiking. I mean, they're just stunning, and it was just so rewarding. Well, I have one question that I always ask all of the guests, and if you've listened to the podcast, you know what it is. What advice would you today give to 18-year-old Vanessa?
I would probably give myself advice on nutrition. When I was in high school and in my later teen years, my perception of nutrition wasn't good. I had a lot of poor food choices, and I don't know where I learned this from, but for some reason, I think there was like a calorie calculator. You could figure out how many calories you could consume per day. And I think it said that mine was 1,200 calories. And I can remember just being obsessed with that number and counting calories and only consuming 1,200 calories. And I did that for probably a few years, and it was very hard. Like, I can remember going to the gym in high school and trying to burn 500 calories on the cardio equipment, and I was still only eating 1,200 calories a day, which is just awful. And I didn't know that you could eat more calories. If you're burning calories like that, I had no concept, and I felt awful in those years, tired, no energy, bad mentally. And looking back, I would give myself some major nutrition advice. Like now on my more active days, like I'm pretty active, I would say I probably consume between 2,000 and 2,200, maybe more calories, depending on my activity.
And that's a more realistic number, I think. And I believe that 1,200 calorie per day is a very common belief. A lot of people believe that 1,200 calories is the magic number, or even 1,000 calories. And, for an active person, that just isn't enough.
No, I don't know how I did it for so long, and I think that really messed up a lot for me, like nutrition wise, during those years.
That's excellent advice. Thank you for sharing that.
Doing that can mess you up for a while before your body gets its equilibrium back. So I'm glad you got yourself out of that, because that's really brutal.
I think it really messed up my metabolism, because when I became inactive, after high school and started being more independent, living on my own and eating crappy foods, it really messed up my metabolism. I kind of always thought, I'd have to go back to eating 1,200 calories a day, and I never wanted to do that. So I never tried dieting, because eating that amount of calories just seemed awful to me, because I did that for so many years. But I've learned a lot about nutrition the last 5-10 years. So kind of undid everything I thought I knew, and I'm much better now.
Well, great job, Vanessa. It's very impressive. Well, Vanessa, thank you very much for being with us tonight. I really appreciate everything that you've been through and you telling us about all that. It's amazing what you did, and you're going to do so much more as you continue your journey. It's just amazing what you've done and how much more you're going to probably do. I have no doubt. Yeah,
I'm excited for the future.
And I really enjoyed connecting with you, Vanessa, and hearing you share your story with our listeners. And I wish you well as you continue your journey.
In the interest of time, I think we're going to leave it there for this evening. So for Vanessa Richardson and Diane Treitz, I'm John Lagroff, and we'll see you next time on Motivate to Move. Good night.
Thank you for joining.
Thanks.